So, uh, the beginning here, I'll just go over a few statistics about fire. And the way the statistics work is that the fire administration, US Fire Administration, is real delayed on putting out the stats. So the latest ones they have are 2019. And that's why you see that 2019. But if you look at this is the causes of residential building fires resulting in injuries in 2019. If you'll notice, 7,000 fires resulted in injuries. And as you look at that pie chart, you'll notice that a very large percentage is from cooking, and we'll be discussing that more in detail. So if you look at some of the other causes, some are unintentional careless, and you go down to smoking and electrical malfunction, and then an open flame, and then there's other causes, and there's a myriad of other causes why houses, structures are set on fire. Now, these are causes of fatal residential building fires in 2019, which there were 1,900 fatal fires. And if you look at this again, you'll see a large percentage is still under investigation, but you can see on smoking, that was 12.3%. Now, bring it a little home to us is the state of Ohio, and this is from the US Fire Administration. So far in 2022, we've had 2 fatalities of firefighters. As you know, it's a fairly dangerous occupation, and we've been fortunate in Canton not to have a fatal fire with a firefighter for a long time. And if you'll notice on the right, the home fire fatalities in 2022 are up to 45 already this year. And in the small print, if you can see it on your screen, it says in 2021, 124 home fire fatalities were reported by the news media. Again, the final stats from the official agencies, US Fire Administration and the National Fire Protection Administration, they haven't come out yet. So another statistic, it's quite sobering. Children aged 14 and under make up 10 to 15% of all fire deaths. And that's always any fire death is really tough on obviously the family and firefighters and the EMS responders, but it's extremely tough when we have children that succumb to the fire or smoke. More than half of all child fire deaths happen to children under the age of 5, and fire injuries happen most often to those under the age of 4. The 10 to 14 age group also experience a significant number of fire injuries. So the question is, are you ready? Are you ready for a fire in your structure? Have you prepared, and so forth? So what we'll do is we'll look at 4 different categories on this. Number 1, we're going to look at fire prevention, just again, an overview. Number 2, we're going to look at preparation, how you can prepare. Number 3, notification, what happens? What do you do when you have a fire? And third is evacuation. On prevention, and as I mentioned before, home fires are a large percentage of the cause of fires in America and in the state of Ohio. You have to help prevent it by, number 1, watching what you heat. Some people don't realize when they're cooking and they're dumping a half a cup of oil or a quarter cup of oil into that frying pan, just how flammable that oil is. And there's other products too that even are around the skillet. A lot of instruments now that people use are plastics, so they melt and then they catch fire. Another prevention tip is keep children and pets away from the cooking area. Children have a tendency, when they're real small, to want to reach up and grab something, and you have 2 problems there. Number 1 is, they can spill that oil on the stove and cause a fire, or number 2, they can spill it on themselves and cause some severe burns. So you always want to keep children away from the stove. Another prevention is staying alert. It says you'll not be alert if you're sleepy, consumed alcohol, taken medication or drugs that make you drowsy. And what happens sometimes are people, they're drinking wine and cooking, drinking wine and cooking, a little wine in the food, a little wine in the stomach. And then they don't realize they become to a point they really can't conduct a proper operation. They're cooking their food. So then they have an accident and that cause a fire. Or they'll want to lay down and just rest. And the stove will be still cooking the food. And of course, then you have fire. And I mentioned the cooking oil on this tip, but also this mentions on this bullet point, splattering grease. Not just you can tip over the pan full of grease, but it splatters too. And you know that when you fix bacon, things like that. Make sure when you turn off the stove or oven when you're finished using it. I've been to many fires and some major fires where they've left the stove completely unattended. And that leads to the next point is, actually the second bullet point, double checking the kitchen before you go to bed or leave the house, making sure all appliances are turned off. We forget a lot of things in life, our keys, or how to get to some point, some direction, but you don't want to forget to turn off the stove. That can be a very deadly mistake. Then that first bullet point is never use a stove or oven to heat your home. And unfortunately, we've had this happen where people want to just leave the burners on. And that's definitely not a good idea, just having that open flame or flames if you have multiple burners going. And then something that every kitchen should have right nearby is a ABC fire extinguisher. And that fire extinguisher, you should have a fire extinguisher that has a dial on it and it tells the pressure. And that'll have a green area, yellow area, and a red area. And you always want to make sure that fire extinguisher is serviced. And especially if it's not pressurized, if you use it, some fire extinguishers are throwaways once you use it. So you dispose it and buy a new one. Some you can actually take it to a facility to have them recharged. But whatever you do, make sure you have that fire extinguisher nearby. Now there's an acronym, you might have heard of it, called PASS. And this has to do with the use of a fire extinguisher. And pull means pull the pin. A lot of them have safety pins on it, so you don't have an accidental discharge. So you pull the pin, you aim it at the fire. And again, we're talking about a small fire, not a whole room and contents fire, something that a fire extinguisher can handle. And then you squeeze the mechanism, the handle on it, and that'll discharge the product onto the fire. And then you'd use a sweeping motion like left to right on it. So that's just an acronym for using a fire extinguisher, but make sure you have at least one fire extinguisher. As you might guess, I have several fire extinguishers. And even out at the shop I have 3 out there in case something would catch fire. But it could save your kitchen. But once again, if you enter, let's just say your smoke alarm's going off and you leave the bedroom and your kitchen's fully involved, forget your fire extinguisher, get out of the house, get everybody out of the house. Fire extinguishers are fine, but they'll run out of product really quick. So this is for a small type of fire. Now, chimneys. Not everybody has a chimney or a wood burner or a fireplace that'll burn wood. Some have fireplaces that burn natural gas or propane. But if you do have a chimney, because you have, let's say, a fireplace with wood, you want to make sure that you don't have a chimney fire. And one way you can do that is, first of all, have it inspected and cleaned periodically. And I can't say how often, because if you're burning wood all the time in that chimney, in that fireplace, then you need to have it obviously inspected more often than somebody might use it once a year. If you just move into a house that has a chimney and it has a wood burner or a fireplace, get it inspected right away. I've had chimneys that are actually totally clogged because a squirrel has built a nest in it. Now, also, if you notice in the second bullet point, it says burning hardwood versus softwood means less creosote. So for example, for those that burn wood, you'll know what I'm talking about, but pine is a soft wood. When pine burns, it leaves off a lot of creosote, and over time that'll line that chimney, and eventually that creosote will catch fire if the chimney's not clean. Hardwood, such as a hard oak or maple, will not leave that much creosote. Not that you shouldn't have the chimney clean, but it won't be that dangerous. Now out west, like in Montana, I've been out there, and a lot of their burning is all pine because pine's so prevalent. But in the Midwest and East, you can get some hardwood oak, and you can get oak, cherry, and to burn in your fireplace. Now, the final thing, I wanted to put this down. Professionals should do chimney cleaning. As you can see, that's a picture. There's a firefighter up on the peak of the roof. You don't want to be going up on the peak of the roof and then end up falling off. Then we're getting EMS involved and you could get seriously hurt. So get a professional up there to clean the chimney. They'll know how to do it so that your living room doesn't get covered with ash, and also the chimney gets clean. Not only that, someone can actually look at your chimney and see if there's cracks or problems. I've had fires where the chimney itself gets cracked over years, and the fire from the fire burning into the area goes through those cracks and starts the house on fire. So watch those chimneys. Grilling. Okay, we're getting into warm weather now. It's time to grill. I just had grilling done a couple days ago, and love to do it, but you got to be careful. Only use your grill outside. You say, well, that's common sense. Some people have actually seen houses where the grill's on the inside, a grill like you see here in the picture. Keep at least 3 feet from the siding. I had a son-in-law once melt my siding because it got too close to the house. So I know that from experience. And clean your grill after each use. This will remove the grease that can start a fire. You don't want to have a grease fire in your grill. And then finally, open your gas grill before lighting. You want the lid up, and even the directions of the appropriate grill will tell you how to light it, how long to wait before you light it. There's, not to get too technical on this, but grills use propane, and propane has, obviously it's a flammable gas that has what's called a lower explosive limit. And propane, what the low LEL, we call it LEL, what that lower explosive limit means is what is the percentage of propane that needs to mix with the air for it to ignite. So in propane, it's around 2.5%. So that's all it takes for propane to be in the air that you can have ignition. So if you're standing there with a big butane lighter, clicking that thing, and you hear gas going, you smell gas, and you keep clicking that, it's not lighting, you could be getting yourself into trouble with an explosion. So make sure if that grill igniter doesn't work right away and you're using a lighter, you hear gas or smell gas, you have that knob on, that it lights right away. If not, turn it off and let everything air out before you try it again. Propane bottles, like the 20-pound container on a grill, can actually be very dangerous when exposed to even a structure fire. The explosion can be quite large. So be careful with the grilling. I'm not trying to ruin your grill out there. Enjoy your hot dogs. Now, we're going to move on here, and we're going to talk about grilling and the safe zone. Just like cooking inside, you want to have around a 3-foot safe zone on your grill. And again, keep your kids and pets away from it. And they might not be familiar with the fact that unlike an oven or a top of the stove that gets hot and the oven doesn't, a grill can be quite hot throughout the area where you're grilling. So they could burn their hands. It talks about placing coals from your grill in a metal can. Of course, don't dump them in the grass and get a grass fire going. Then keep an eye on your grill or fire pit and patio torches. Don't walk away. Again, don't go away and go somewhere else and let the whole house catch on fire when you're gone. So again, enjoy your grilling, but be careful. Candles, another prevention tip. And the reason why I go over candles at the holiday season are very festive and a lot of people use them, and don't want to discourage from using candles, but you got to be very careful with them. Some of the worst house fires we've had in fatalities been because of candles. Sometimes the curtains blow and to the candle, they catch fire, but you can use a candle. Again, don't leave it unattended. You're going to leave the room, you're done for the evening, snuff the candle out, and do not let that thing burn out through the night. And again, it's an open flame. So just like we talked about the oven or the stovetop, you want to make sure that your candle is not near anything combustible. And now we talk about extension cords. Now this is year round, but once again, it seems like two types of seasons people want to overload their extension cord. Well, number one is when you have Christmas time and you have multitude of Christmas lights out, and it looks like that power strip there up on the screen. Do not do that. All right, that you're making all that electricity from that single line going to the power strip. You're making it feed all those different applications. And if you're fortunate, the power strip below will just burn out. And that, I don't say it's real fortunate, but you don't want that to cause a fire. The worst case scenario, obviously, is you get a fire set in your house. Now, don't overload it. Just put low voltage, low amperage devices on a power strip. And then always ensure that the wires you're hooking into it are not pinched or worn. Don't use frayed wires. Don't take black tape to an electric cord and fix it yourself. Just get rid of that cord and get a new cord. Smoking. If you would happen to be one of those that smoke, there was a lot of house fires caused by smoking. And you can see the statistic there that 30% of fire deaths in the United States and 10% of fire deaths worldwide are caused by smoking. People will fall asleep smoking on the couch. It'll go down in the couch and then eventually catch fire. And sometimes the cigarette butts are not always snuffed out. Sometimes they're thrown out on mulch. The mulch catches fire and the house catches fire. Now we're going to talk about preparation. How do you prepare for fire? Again, we're talking about for your safety, what you should do. Now, what you have here is a map. Somebody drew a nice map of their house, and it's showing escape routes. And so you want to have, every house is different. Apartment complexes are different. You want to know your escape route. Because when a fire happens, number one, a lot of fires happen at night. So it won't be very clear where you should go just because of darkness. Number two, even if it's in the daytime, sometimes the smoke is so dense that unless you're crawling on the floor, you're not sure where you're going. So you want to make sure that you and your family know how to get out of that house. All right. And I can't emphasize that enough. I could go on with a lot of stories, people jumping out of second floors, off of roofs, and just trying to escape the flames. So know you have a plan, and actually an alternative plan. Okay, now this map you have here doesn't go into shows a primary escape route, as you can see the solid line, but the secondary, I don't know if it shows up, but it shows a dotted line, and the dotted line are out the windows. See how the primary goes out your main door, or let's say you choose a back door as your primary. Your escape route, your secondary is out the windows, because windows have to be raised up to get out. Sometimes, like I said, they're on second floors. So the window isn't the opportune way. But if you can't do the primary, get out of that house as fast as you can. And the notice on the second bullet point is designate a meeting place outside, get out and stay out. Now, we do this with businesses too. Businesses will have a designated spot for their workers, or should have, that if there's an emergency, they all gather for a head count. Your family's no different. You should have a designated place that you meet. Unfortunately, I've experienced where people have run back in to a burning house to try to save somebody. And sometimes they were killed and sometimes they made it out. So you do not want to be in that situation. You want to have it where you all meet, you get a head count and so forth. And remember, when firefighters show up, they don't know the layout of your house. And it's always good for them to know the actual entrance of the house. Houses are very deceptive from the outside. Some have false walls built into them by the homeowner or years ago. Some have false ceilings. So it's good that fire departments know how to get to the bedroom to rescue your family if somebody is trapped in there. Under preparation, and you've probably heard this multiple times before, but have smoke alarms. Make sure you have batteries in them, but have smoke alarms. And you see by the diagram where you should place them. Each sleeping area should have a smoke alarm. The hallway, you notice the hallway upstairs in this house has a smoke alarm, and even the basement has a smoke alarm. And these smoke alarms have saved thousands of lives. I can't tell you how many times I've been to houses where the people have got out successfully because their smoke alarm went off. Sorry. Another item you should have, and this is a little pricier to be honest with you, but it's a CO detector, carbon monoxide detector. Now, if you notice on the bullet point, it says carbon monoxide is slightly lighter than air, and also because it may be found with warm rising air, detectors should be placed on the wall about 5 feet above the wall. Now, I realize also these plug-in alarms, very rarely do you find a house that has a wall outlet that's 4 feet high in every room, like the bedroom and so forth. But that shouldn't stop you. Still get CO detectors. Make sure it has a digital readout like this one you see here. This happened to be by Nighthawk. I'm not promoting that one particular, and then place it in the rooms like you see in the map. And again, the bedrooms, the hallway, the living room, the basement. Now, carbon monoxide is totally odorless, and it's also invisible. So if you have a bad water heater, if you have a furnace problem, let's say in the basement, that carbon monoxide can be distributed through the house, through the ventilation system, and it can kill whole households. So make sure you get a carbon monoxide alarm and place it where you see it here. And like I said, they're a little more expensive, the smoke alarms, but they're well worth it. Then the final thing in this picture you see right here has fire extinguisher placements. And this isn't really overboard. I didn't draw this drawing, somebody else did. And it shows where you have different fire extinguishers. All right, now we're on notification. So you have an emergency. Now, most people are familiar with the 911 system since it's been around so long. But a few things I want to point out about the 911 system. All right, number one, as you know, it's for police and fire and EMS, the emergency medical service. But number two, try to state clearly the problem and the location of the problem. Now, I know you got to get out of the house if it's a fire, but even if you grab your cell phone and go outside the house and call 911, at least get everybody out of the fire first. All right. Now, if you have a independent garage on fire from your house, you might be able to call within the house. But the second thing is make sure that you tell the emergency operator as clearly as possible where this accident is or where this injury, this fire is. It's in the garage out back. You might have an alley that accesses that garage. I've had calls where the person calls 911 from in the house, but the emergency is actually their neighbors. And so without any further address to the problem, the fire department or the EMS will go to the origin of the call. So if possible, say where the emergency is, what the emergency is. And then obviously on the last bullet point is never use 911 as a prank call or false call. And adults know this, but make sure you go over that with your kids, whether you're babysitting or whether it's your relative, your sons, daughters, and so forth, grandkids, because the emergency vehicle and personnel that go to your house because of a prank call might be neglecting the next call that comes in from another house across town. And they're trying to figure out where this false call is coming from and what's going on. Now, the final thing that I want to discuss with you is evacuation. Once again, we talked about map and how to get out and so forth. We talked about the bullet point here is a gathering point. But I put this here because evacuation is so critical. I wanted to make it separate that you can see this picture here. They've gathered at a location, a gathering point from the fire, away from the fire, and make sure you stay away from the emergency response personnel. Sometimes during the course of a fire, we have high voltage lines dropping that are linked to the house, a 220 line that linked to the house. And we don't want anybody to get hurt, even if they're standing outside watching. We have a lot of commotion, hose lines, and so forth that are going down. Vehicles are coming in, sometimes an ambulance. We don't want to see anybody get run over. So discuss and rehearse this about evacuation. Now, I'm going to go over just as a little bit of a rhetorical test time here for everybody watching. And these are questions actually from a true incident, true incidences. All right, number one, should you clean off tar from the bumper of your vehicle with kerosene, which is flammable, in an enclosed garage with a torpedo heater running? Hint, torpedo heaters have an open flame. Is that true or false? So of course not, but we've had that happen before where a house gets totally on fire because the kerosene is ignited onto the car bumper, burning the car, burning the garage, burning the house. Believe it or not. All right, and this is true. I mean, the answer is false, but true is accepted answer if you wanted to set your attached garage on fire with the house, like I said. The next one, if you have a grease fire in a pot on the stove, we talk about cooking now, should you carry the stove and flaming pot through the kitchen and the living room to the outside? You say, well, who would do that? It's been done before. And the answer, of course, is false. Of course, true is accepted if you want to set your house on fire and spill hot oil on your body so you can keep the emergency room nurses employed. Being a little facetious here, but this actually happened. Now, notice the note here. Throwing flaming grease out your back window might also ruin your night of cooking. This is a true shot of somebody who threw a pan of grease on fire out their back window, and the fire went up the back of the house into the attic and set the whole attic on fire. All right, multiple choice. If your house has bees in the walls, what product should you pour into a hole in the wall and light? A, gasoline, B, kerosene, C, none of the above. And of course, it's C, none of the above. And that really happened also. But A and B is accepted if you wanted to burn the bees, the home of the bees, and the home of the bees owner. Here's a bonus question for car mechanics. If you're using a cutting torch underneath your truck and accidentally set fire to the underside of your truck, you must rapidly intervene to stop a small fire from getting larger. So do you A, grab the ABC fire extinguisher and use the pass technique to stop the fire, or B, grab the high velocity compressed air line to attempt to blow it out? Now, fire loves a lot of air. So of course, use a fire extinguisher, pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. But the dark billowing hydrocarbon smoke from your truck fire could attract a lot of onlookers who might hire you to fix their truck. I think not, but that actually happened too. Grab that fire extinguisher, which should be handy. Do not use compressed air to try to blow it out.